Today I was reading Twitter and there were a lot of reports saying that there's rumored to be perhaps a new iPhone SE at the next Apple keynote. I got a little bit excited, but I do something that I tend to do now. Because we're flooded with so many rumors, I backtrace it a little bit. Open the article, check the report, and it says, a French blogger who shall remain nameless that cited an unknown source, which has apparently been reliable in the past, but again, they didn't want to say the name, says that there will be an iPhone SE keynote at the end of August. Not September, at the very end of August, and then they will delay the release of the iPhone edition and the other iPhone 7s phones for a keynote that'll be held in October because they need more time to produce them. Do we really just believe anything at this point? You're telling me that someone somewhere who cited a source we don't know about just said there's gonna be a new iPhone SE, and that's now made the news. That's literally all it takes. This is super easy. Can I try this, you guys? Can I just start spewing out information with no actual evidence? I'm gonna start tweeting that Apple is working on a redesigned Mac Mini that's the size of the current day Apple TV, but has Intel i7 core processors in it. I feel like that's gonna do well. I think that would leak well. Like this just in, coming out in March of 2018, Mac Mini is getting a refresh with just USB-C ports. It's gonna be big. That's basically how big a claim we have right now. I can't begin to start on how dumb of an idea this keynote scheme is. I'm gonna look really, really stupid if this ends up happening, but I am 99.98% sure that it's not going to. So first of all, Apple's never had a keynote just because of one product release. I think by far the weakest and dumbest unnecessary keynote we ever had was back in March of 2016. They unveiled the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, which was just all the same specs of the larger iPad Pro, put into a smaller form factor, now in rose gold, and with a camera bulge and a flash. Processor was the same. They added the 256 gigabytes of storage. That was kind of neat, but it wasn't that exciting, especially because back then, I was anticipating the release of the iPad Air 3. It would have Apple Pencil support, there would be the smart connector, but that way we could have three distinct categories of iPad that are not very confusing as they are now. I thought it was just gonna be iPad Pro, iPad Air, iPad Mini. But then they complicated it back then, so that keynote introduced the idea that you now have to say the screen size of the iPad when you're talking about each individual one, and then that's also when the iPhone SE, the original one, came out. That was pretty neat. It was like, oh, there's a fairly high-spec 4-inch iPhone out there now with a 4K camera, pretty good processing speed, and hey, it still had a headphone jack, which for a lot of people, that's a big deal. And since then, no one has stopped theorizing about the next generation of the iPhone SE. Will it have a dual camera? Will it be waterproof? Will they add 3D touch? Will they change the design of it, or will they make it look just like an iPhone 5? I've talked about it. I've done my wish list on it, but if we'd stop just highlighting random people that just shout out any bit of information and just look at the facts. The fact is that the main appeal of the iPhone SE wasn't necessarily the screen size, it was the price point. People love that you could have a flagship iPhone that was very cheap. I know a lot of people who have the SE, they love it, and it's still a great phone, but for the most part, I think Apple was looking for easy sales for people who were not ready to make that jump to the bigger phones with the iPhone 6 and 6S. Apple has realized now that time has gone on, people have adapted, and it's okay to move on to a 4.7-inch iPhone. It's a little bit bigger than what a lot of people prefer, but it does not take that long to get used to. It's a pretty easy transition, and now with the introduction of the iPhone 7s and iPhone 8 coming in just a few months, there will be very, very cheap iPhone 6s's available that are going to take the place of where the iPhone SE is now. Very similar price point. So the idea that they should keep in production the special edition just for those people who need that 4-inch iPhone but don't want a 4.7, it's not going to be worth it to them in the long run. I understand that there's lots of you out there who love that screen size and you don't want to change, you don't want to make that move up. I hear ya. I'm just saying that unfortunately you are in the minority and Apple has to appeal to the greatest common denominator. They can't appeal to every single customer, and I get that you're out there, but I'm sorry, you drew the short straw and Apple's not seeing a big profit margin in your category. The other big reason I think they're not going to be pushing having the 4-inch iPhone stick around is because the next iPhone, while it has the largest display of any iPhone at 5.8 inches and OLED, very excited to see what Apple has in store for us, but the form factor is much smaller. In fact, it's only slightly bigger than a regular iPhone 7, and if that's the case, then form factors on smartphones is not going to be a big deal anymore. It doesn't really make sense to have a 4-inch iPhone that's very small next to the top-of-the-line iPhone iPhone, which is only slightly bigger, but obviously has the better design, better looks, better specs. Form factor wise, they're so similar, it doesn't make sense to sell both. Also, why would Apple hold a keynote for one single release? We already got new iPads, so they couldn't unveil new iPads in there. We already got a refresh from MacBooks just at the last keynote, so it's not like we're gonna see a processor or design change in a late August keynote. It doesn't make sense that Apple would hold a keynote just for the iPhone SE 2. Stupid name, by the way. Keynotes have to have more than that just happening at once. I guess if I had to give this rumor a little bit of credit, maybe they'd unveil the Apple Watch Series 3 and the iPhone SE 2 at the same time. But still, I think personally that that's a very low-end keynote. It would not be in one of those big conference halls. It would be in a tiny one, like the ones that they hold from Apple headquarters. And it would be like under an hour. See, overall, I just think if you don't have 3 to 4, maybe 5 things to talk about in a keynote, it really just shouldn't happen. I really love WWDC this year. That was a stacked full keynote with tons of new software and hardware, announcements like the iMac Pro and the HomePod and the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, iOS 11, macOS, watchOS. That's a great keynote, and I think that's the standard Apple should hold to having a live event. And if they do something like that with the late August event for just a 4-inch iPhone and the next Apple Watch, that's just too small. Not enough is going on. So I'm predicting it will not happen. I'm still thinking that the iPhone edition and 7S will be unveiled in September, but they'll be in very short supply. Demand is going to be incredibly high, and products are still in very low production. But no, I don't want people believing in this rumor that just simply has no evidence. What do you think? Does this sound believable? Should we actually trust this new leaker with no track record? Let me know in the comments below. And also, before you forget, there's a sale going on until July 23rd for all of this awesome Tailosive merchandise. You want to buy t-shirts that say "Give me a break," or you want the AirPods t-shirt, anti-headphone jack, all of that great swag. Link is in the description, and if you use this promo code, you can get 15% off. Save yourself some money, because Spreadshirt is awesome. However, the shirts are a little pricey, so 15%. Take advantage of this, please. Thank you. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.